Okay, and we continue. Hilchas Bayrer. Hilchas Bayrer. We are up to Sif Yud Beis, and today is going to be Fish Day in the world of Bayrer. Shemiras Shabbos Kehilchaso Perek Gimel, Sif Yud Beis, Sif Yud Gimel, Sif Yud Dalet, Sif Tes Vav, Sif Tes Zayin. Hopefully, B'siyat Deshmaya, as we deal with the myriad of issues, perhaps, when it comes to fish. Says the Shemiras Shabbos Kehilchaso, Ein Melachel Basar Sheish B'Atzamot. He starts with meat with bones. O dog or fish Sheish B'Adarot. Adarois is a herringbone. Again, bones in your fish. Aser loy lahaser b'Shabbos eso atzamos. You're not allowed to remove the bones on Shabbos. O yes adarois. Or the herringbone, techila misham iser breira. So, to take out the bone is a problem. Why? Bad from good. Classical situation of Bayrer. In the Star, he points out, and therefore, because of this issue, when you're preparing chatichas dag likavod archim, oile kiddush, oile to the shlishis, he says, now that we know you can't remove the bone, you should be cognizant of such that when you're doing your Shabbos preparations, that it's not allowed. So what should you do? Sometimes the answer is just don't get involved in the shayla. What should you do? Before Shabbos. You should prepare it before Shabbos. If you did not, you should serve the fish whole. And when you eat it, as we're going to see in a moment, everyone should be makbil to remove the fish from the bone, and we'll get there in one moment. But the reason why this footnote little area is important is many times we're going to see numerous shaylas, and of course the lichatchila always is not to get involved in it. So much so, just give you another marmakayim. We all know Rosh Zalman was Mekel Tobin bottles. Yet in his tshuva, he starts off the whole tshuva, says, but of course the covet Shabbos is to not get involved in a shayla. So we're about to discuss all these bones. He's going to talk about this, where gefilte fish comes from, to have a fish without bones, but sometimes half the battle is avoiding the shayla. But okay, now you did it. What do you do now? V'ketzid yaseh. First, eitzah. Yachnis t'chbigas oichel al abseil shabai. Put the whole thing in your mouth. He sounds like here he's talking more about like little fish and things. Ta'inu abasar la'atzim shabai. The meat on the bone. Or the fish with its bone. You pull out the bone from your mouth. Before we explain why it's not chash breira, if you look at Sif Kat and Yudches, he says also it's not muksa, which is a massive shayla. That bone is the definition of muksa. There's no usage for that bone. Yet he says it's not muksa. Now, why is it not muksa? It could be numerous reasons. The simplest reason might just be because it's a chash sakana. So on muksa sakana we are makel. So it could be that's the reason why we allow you to take it out of your mouth. Could be because it doesn't get the shame muksa until it is out of your mouth, whatever its reason. But he says you're allowed to take it out, and it's not called bayra. If you look at Sif Katan or note Yotes, he says ayin chaznish, ayin oi. Now he has a kasha from the Shemiras Shabbos, b'shem the brisker Rav, or not, b'shem one of the briskers. First day. Shaya oichel gam ha'atzamos. Who is eating gam ha'atzamos, he was eating also the bones. Interesting. What was going on there in Brisk? That they start eating the bones. Swallowed them? I'm reading you the words. He ate the bones. He didn't eat them. He would suck the bones and spit them out. Okay, different minhagim. I mean, yeah, but you're not swallowing the bone. Some people do. We're not going to talk about myself. That's a different story. Let's get there. But either way, says here, what do? You're allowed to take the bone out. It's not a din of bayrer. The reason, numerous explanations. Simply, we could say that's called a ma'isa achila. The act of eating allows you to pluck the bone. That's eitzah number one. Now, the maybe more proper folk amongst us are wondering, Rabbi, great eitzah, but I'm not sitting there at the table, pulling out the bones from my mouth. You take chicken wings. No big deal. Throw the whole wing in your mouth, chomp down, pull out the bone, I don't know if your company is going to appreciate that. So do we have any other eitzah? Let's continue. Im derech zu ein noicha, he was mechavin. Let's say it's not noicha, it's not pleasant to you. Yachzik ba'etzem. So what should he do? Hold on to the bone, v'yichlas habasar menu, and eat the meat from it. Oh, that's eitzah number one. Eitzah number two. O yasir b'mazligas habasar. Take off the flesh with the fork in your plate. Take off the meat. You're holding the bone and you're taking off the meat. Maybe one would say, wait, if you're holding the bone, maybe that's called bayra. No, you're removing the meat, you're removing the fish. This is my example. He's about to say it. Or with a knife. Gam, I think last week when I said my shtickle Torah with my cowboy steak that I cut off the fat, some Elam was a little bit hesitant. Says the Shemiras Shabbos, Gam muter lahachzik biyad achas be'etzem v'lim shoich es habasar biyad acheres, and to do mishicha, to draw, to pull, to move the meat with your other hand. And he speaks out, af al pi sha'etzem shebiyado tisha'er b'lo basar. The bone remains in your hand. In my example, the fat remained on your fork. It's still mutter as the ki mutter lahaitzi kol adar b'fnei. Well, excuse me, that's the next case. It's still mutter. Why? Because the item in motion is the nivrar, is the psilis. That is the psak of the Mishnah Brura. There is a graz that might argue on this, but this is the psak halacha, that whatever you're moving, that's called taking, that is the maisa bayer. So if you're taking off the fish, you're taking off the meat, and you're holding the bone, it is allowed. The gam, and finally, mutar lahotzi kol adar b'fnei atzma. This is an interesting one. You're allowed to take out the whole bone. Ach, yesh limotzis bepeh, you should suck with your mouth the bone. Koydem cheeser, can you pull out the whole, the whole center of the fish? Yeah, while it's on your plate or in the kitchen, take out the whole bone and suck out all the yummy fish juice off the bone, and it's all good. And then that's the chiddush. That makes that achila. That makes that oichel at some level. Good. No. Achish. The whole thing is a chiddush. We're about to see the opposite. No, you certainly. You can pull the bone out of your mouth. Yeah, again. There's three levels here. Level number one is put it on your mouth, take out the bone. Level number two is take the good off the bad. Number two. Level number three is, and we're about to go to level number 4 in a moment. Level number 3 is you're allowed to take out the whole bone, but you have to make ki'ilu, that bone, into achilo by sucking it off. If you look at Sif Katan Chafei over here, he points out that you could do this even if you're not eating it right now. Let's say you're preparing the fish. You have this big, massive fish, and you want to take out the center spine of the bone. So you pull out the whole bone, you suck it down, you lick it off, and then it makes it mutter at some level. What do you mean? Oh, very good. Very good. You're asking a very good question. And the question is better than the answer. The answer is no. And part of what we're going to see over here, if we learn the sugya, there was a big problem that they only had fish with these terrible bones. And let's go a little bit further. Hold your question for a moment. Sif Yod Gimel. If you're not able to do any of the above, Kigoin, Hachal Tagabai Daras Ketanos is tina little bones. Yeshamatirim, there are those that are mako. Lahasiras Adaras Yachadim Ma'at Mebalser. You can take out off the bone with a little bit of flesh, a davuk behen. Be precise in his words. Meaning, if you're going to take off, you're all wondering why yesh my kilim. We all know the heter to remove with good, with some bad, with some good. That is bad with some good. But if you take out the bone, it has a little bit of flesh on that bone. That's not called bad with some good. That's a yesh matirim bidavka over here. The way I just said it, I try to answer up a kasha, a stira between the Mishnah Brura and the Chazon Ish, but let's just leave it at that. That's the yesh matirim. V'yesh machmirim b'zeh, he quotes the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish is being machmir because it's only that little bit on the bone. Whereas if you were to cut off the bone with a little bit of flesh on it, that case l'chayra, even the Chazon Ish would be meko. But in this fish that has these little bones floating throughout the whole thing, that's not going to help. Maybe in a case of a big a steak on a big bone, there you'd have the eitzah to leave some meat on the bone, and then that would be okay. Yudalid, he continues even more kuladik. Baram, Gam ila noigin lahakel, those who are noig to be makel. To do what? Lahaitzis adarais min adog, to remove the bone from the fish. Yesh lehem almi lismach. Take out the bone. Mamish boirer. You're pulling out bone from fish. Vahu, but what should you do? Sheyase kain mamish b'shasa achila v'loi lifnei kain. And not prior. So when we look at Sifkat Chavches, he says, this is a massive bir halacha, and he says, Limus chos means it's not mutter. We're saying really you shouldn't do it, but Klal Yisrael does it, so we'll explain us chos. Frag the bottom. They're even more makel. I told you to do a mamash on your plate, but they remove the bones even in the kitchen before when they're preparing the fish. Hare. So says Rav Neuber, let me explain to you why I only allowed on top to take this massive heter of bone removal from your plate, just the bone. Mamish samach lachila. Mikiv on shachazaynish. Void achreinim. Cholkin al kulazumi kol v'kol. They argue violently. And they say, no way, you can't just remove the bone. Ve'machmirim afilu b'shas asuda mamish. Therefore, yesh la'achma kapanim shalachim they asuda, don't do prior for the suda. Last is gain davka b'shas ha'oichel. Why? Shari Paiskim Mekilim Bazeh Ayin Sham in the Bir Ha-Lacha. And that's going to be your final avenue, is mamish to remove it while you're eating just the bone. But in Tesvav, he ends off and he says, Kol Eile. I just listed you 4 different ways to be mekel. Again, take the bone out of your mouth. Take the meat off of the bone. Take the bone out with a little bit of meat. Take just the bone out. Mamish Shas Achila. Let's give a good yasher koyach to Klal Yisrael. Am Kedoshim Shanhigu Lechol B'Shabbos Dogim Mimulaim, which is the law Adaras L'Chayr. This is gefilte fish. Lotzeis Midei Kol HaSveikois V'Chashashes Hanal. We don't want to get involved in any shaylos. And now finally we conclude with Sifteh Zayin. What do you do with your plate? You're eating the fish, and there were some bones, so you took the bone off of the fish, you took the fish off of the bone, or you're having the chicken wing, and you're holding the bone, and you're eating the chicken off of it, but now you're left with the bone in your plate. Atzamais yaveshais leloi basar, important words over there. There's still a little bit of basar left in it, it doesn't become muksa. Hamutzais betavshel shebes lachatoit, elser lahatziron. Can't move it. Gamim yishben meyach. That's the little juice on it. Unless you want to suck it. Ad li gemara chila, and then the gemara chila, you're gonna have to move the plate with something else on the plate because these items become muksa. We'll finish with one last halacha because the first cousin of this whole halacha is a watermelon, because you have the seeds in the watermelon. Ha'echalav tiach. Machlis l'teicha abes achatichal garinim shabao moitzis garinim in a pen. You spit out the pits, which is how we started today, which is removing the bone from your mouth while eating the fish. Ve'im b'zev chashash iser breira. Ein arot laskin. You don't want to do that. Yinaris aprusav tiach k'dei lahasir garinim b'derech zu. So he says an interesting heter, and he says only do this yishas akain samach lachila. Don't do it prior, which is what? Shake the watermelon. I've never really seen this work so well, but it works a little bit, and the pits fall out. There's a little bit of pits left in the pri, in the fruit. We can understand, but now removing the peel in Asar's Klipas Avtiach, we'll see further, and regarding the melon as well, see further in Sifkat Lamed Dalid. Well, we'll pick it up and we'll go a drop deeper in the watermelon the next year. B'siyata Dishmaya.